Okay, let's think about this. What if, like, a single piece of administrative paperwork could actually spell disaster for an entire nonprofit organization? Sounds pretty dramatic, I know, but for Canadian registered charities, the annual T3010 Registered Charity Information Return, it carries exactly that kind of weight. So today, our mission is really to peel back the layers on the, well, often overlooked but potentially catastrophic risks of filing this crucial document late. We're going to explore how just a seemingly minor administrative slip-up can trigger this whole cascade of problems. We're talking financial devastation, operational paralysis, and maybe even the complete end of an organization that's doing really vital work in our communities.
That's absolutely right. It sounds dramatic, but it's the reality. You know, when we talk about the T3010, we're not just discussing some tax form. Not at all. We're actually talking about safeguarding the very existence of these organizations, the ones serving our communities. It's about preserving public trust, ensuring they can actually continue their mission. The implications of missing this deadline, they're just far more profound than most people realize.
Okay, so let's unpack that a bit. Start with the basics. What exactly is this T3010? Why is it so fundamental for Canadian charities?
Right. So at its heart, the T3010 is the primary accountability link between registered charities and the Canada Revenue Agency, the CRA. Think of it almost like an annual report card. It's this really comprehensive document where organizations have to lay everything bare: their activities, their financial health, how they're governed, and importantly, how they've stepped to their charitable purposes over the last fiscal year.
Lay everything bare. So that includes what exactly?
Yeah, pretty much everything: where their money came from, revenue sources, how they spent it, expenditures, detailed descriptions of their programs, even who's on their board of directors.
Wow, okay, so it's the complete operational and financial picture for the year. And this critical report card, when does it usually have to be handed in?
Precisely. The filing deadline is typically 6 months after the end of a charity's fiscal year. So for a lot of organizations that run on a calendar year, you know, their year ends December 31st.
Right, so that would mean a June 30th deadline for that.
Exactly, June 30th. But, and this is really crucial, organizations must know their specific fiscal year end and track that individual deadline meticulously. And what's really insightful here, I think, is that it's so much more than just a regulatory tax thing. This document is basically a public trust report. Most of the information, it actually becomes publicly accessible through the CRA's online charity database.
Publicly accessible, so anyone can just look it up.
Pretty much. Donors, grant makers, the general public, they can all go online and review an organization's operations, its financial health in detail. Its transparency taken to, well, a pretty significant degree. It allows anyone to see how their donations are being used, essentially.
Okay, that transparency piece is huge. So given how vital that is, what happens the moment that T3010 deadline passes? I've heard the CRA doesn't offer much wiggle room here.
You heard right. There's basically zero tolerance from the CRA on this. No grace periods, no friendly reminder calls after the fact. The second that clock ticks past the deadline, boom, the organization is officially non-compliant.
And the consequences start immediately.
Immediately. The first hit is automatic financial penalties. It starts at $500 for the very first time it happens. But that escalates, and pretty significantly, if it happens again.
$500. I mean, that might not sound like a fortune, but for smaller charities.
Exactly. For smaller charities operating on really tight budgets, even that first $500 can be a real gut punch. It diverts funds directly away from, you know, the actual programs they're supposed to be running.
That's tough. A $500 hit right away. But I get the feeling that's just the tip of the iceberg, isn't it?
Oh, it absolutely is. Even more concerning, I'd say, than the immediate cash hit is that a permanent compliance record starts building against the organization right then and there. The CRA keeps really detailed records of all filing violations, every single one, and that history. It influences every single future interaction they have with the CRA. It could easily trigger increased scrutiny for years down the line.
So it's like getting points on your driving record, but for a charity.
That's a pretty good analogy, yeah. It's like a permanent mark on their, let's call it, compliance credit score. Every missed deadline leaves a significant ding. And on top of that, remember that public charity database we mentioned?
Yeah, the one where anyone can check up on them.
That's the one. Well, their listing there will immediately show these compliance issues. Think about the damage that does to their reputation. Donors check that. Funding organizations definitely check that. It can scare them off instantly.
Okay, so the penalties hit fast, the record gets marked.
Yeah.
But you mentioned this can escalate dramatically. What's the ultimate fear here, the terrifying consequence you hinted at?
The ultimate fear. The absolute worst case scenario. That's the threat of having their charity registration revoked entirely.
Revoked, like shut down.
Essentially, yes,
Yeah.
losing their registered status. The CRA has broad authority to do this for organizations that don't meet their filing obligations, and they don't hesitate to use that power. It happens regularly. Now, while revocation proceedings can technically start after missing just one deadline, it usually happens after, say, repeated violations or if they've been non-compliant for a long time.
Is there a process, or does it just happen?
Oh, there's a process. It's structured, but it's pretty unforgiving. Initially, the CRA sends out formal compliance notices. These demand immediate filing, and they explicitly threaten revocation. They typically give the charity maybe 60 to 90 days to respond.
To get their act together.
Okay, 60 to 90 days. But what if the charity doesn't respond adequately or can't? Well, if they don't respond properly within that window, the CRA moves forward with formal revocation proceedings. And a critical thing happens during this process. The charity immediately loses its ability to issue official donation receipts.
Ah, the tax receipts. That's huge for donors.
But absolutely huge. For most charities, that effectively ends donor relationships right there. People donate in part for that tax benefit. If they can't get it, why donate to that charity? And you have to imagine the psychological impact during this time on the staff, the volunteers, even the people the charity helps. It creates just immense uncertainty and fear. Is the organization going to survive? It's gut-wrenching for everyone.
That sounds incredibly stressful.
It really is. And if we connect this to the sort of bigger picture, once revocation actually becomes final, the consequences are severe.
Yeah.
And they last. The organization instantly loses all the tax benefits that come with being a charity, no more income tax exemption, no eligibility for certain grants, and, crucially, all of its assets, everything it owns, must be transferred to other qualified dunnies.
Qualified dunnies.
Meaning other registered charities or maybe certain public institutions that the CRA approves, organizations that can issue tax receipts. This often forces the organization to just dissolve, to cease existing entirely.
So it's not just losing their status, it's potentially the complete obliteration of the organization itself.
Yeah.
It's just an astonishing consequence for an administrative oversight.
Exactly. Obliteration is a good word for it in some cases. And just to add another layer, that revocation becomes a permanent part of the public record. The CRA actually maintains public lists of revoked charities. So for the people who are running it, the directors, the founders, it makes it extremely difficult for them to, say, start a new charity later on, or even just to get positions of trust elsewhere in the charitable sector. It's a mark that really follows them.
Wow. Okay. It's clear the explicit penalties, like revocation, are incredibly severe.
Yeah.
But the financial implications must just cascade through an organization in ways that go far beyond a simple fine, right?
Yeah.
How does that actually play out?
Oh, it creates this absolutely debilitating domino effect. Think about funding organizations first. Government agencies, foundations, corporate donors. They routinely, almost always, verify a charity's registration status before they release any funds.
Makes sense. They want to know their money is going to a legit place.
Precisely. And many have automatic systems now that flag organizations with compliance issues. That can mean grant payments are immediately frozen, or new applications are just disqualified on the spot. Losing even one major funding source like that can instantly create a massive cash flow crisis. It directly threatens their ability to deliver programs, pay staff, even keep the lights on.
And does it impact their ability to function day to day beyond just the grant money, like with banks?
Absolutely. Even banks and other financial institutions often monitor a charity's compliance status, especially if the charity has loans or lines of credit with them. Seeing compliance violations can trigger internal loan review processes. That could potentially lead to demands for accelerated repayment or even cancellation of their credit facilities.
Oh, wow. Imagine being a small charity, just trying to make payroll, and suddenly your bank calls in your loan.
Exactly. It adds this enormous pressure onto finances that are probably already strained. It can easily push organizations into insolvency. Then, like we touched on, there's the direct hit on individual donor relationships. Not being able to issue tax receipts during these periods of non-compliance, it often leads to donors just stopping their donations immediately. And rebuilding that trust, rebounding those relationships after compliance is hopefully restored. That can take years, if it's even possible.
And I guess dealing with the crisis itself costs money, too.
Oh, for sure. Navigating these crises inevitably requires professional help. Lawyers, accountants, maybe consultants who specialize in this, and those emergency professional fees, they can easily run into the tens of thousands of dollars. Money that most charities just don't have sitting around for a crisis like this. It's truly a nightmare scenario.
Okay, so the financial side is devastating. But when these compliance issues hit, how does it actually paralyze the organization's day-to-day work? And maybe most critically, how does it impact the very people that charity is supposed to be serving?
Yeah, the human cost is truly devastating. Inside the organization, staff morale just plummets. Their job security suddenly feels uncertain. You often see key people leave right at the worst possible time when you need them most.
And volunteers.
Yeah,
I imagine they get nervous too.
absolutely. Volunteer retention becomes nearly impossible. People lose confidence in the organization's leadership, its stability. They understandably don't want to dedicate their precious time to an entity that might just, disappear next month. And then the core mission suffers. Program delivery inevitably takes a hit because all the management attention, all the energy becomes consumed with compliance issues. They're basically fighting for survival.
Instead of focusing on the mission.
Right, instead of focusing on fulfilling the mission. So the beneficiaries, the people who actually depend on these services, especially if they're from vulnerable populations, they face disruptions or sometimes complete program cancellations.
That's a direct, immediate, and painful impact on the community itself.
Precisely. And it doesn't stop there. It ripples up to the governance level, too. Running the board becomes incredibly difficult. Directors start worrying about potential personal liability connected to these compliance failures.
They may be held liable personally.
In some situations, yes, there can be risks. So some board members, understandably concerned, might just resign. That creates these leadership vacuums right when you need strong governance most. And forget trying to recruit new board members. Who wants to join the board of an organization whose future is totally up in the air? So any kind of strategic planning just becomes meaningless. How can you make long-term commitments or enter into new partnerships when your basic legal status is uncertain? This operational paralysis, it often lasts way longer than the immediate crisis. It can take years to fully rebuild the organization's capacity and regain the community's confidence, if that is, it ever fully recovers.
You mentioned trust and confidence. We know trust is just the absolute bedrock of the charitable sector. So what happens when that trust gets damaged by these kinds of compliance failures?
Yeah, the reputational damage. That can honestly outlast any of the financial penalties or the operational disruptions. It can be the longest-lasting wound. Think about media coverage. When stories break about charity compliance issues, they tend to be pretty harsh. They often focus on, say, governance failures or perceived mismanagement, rather than maybe the underlying administrative challenge that caused it.
And social media probably makes that worse.
Oh, absolutely. Social media just amplifies these stories incredibly quickly, and it creates these lasting digital footprints. Negative stories can pop up in search results for years to come. So even organizations that successfully fix their compliance issues might find these past violations haunting their future fundraising efforts, the partnership attempts.
It's not just a passing headline. It sounds like it can almost create a kind of informal blacklist within the sector itself.
That is an excellent way to put it. An informal blacklist, because the charity sector, well, it's incredibly interconnected. It's a smaller world than people think. And reputational damage spreads fast through those professional networks. Foundation program officers talk to each other. Government contract managers share notes. Corporate partnership coordinators hear things. They often share information, maybe informally, about organizations they see as problematic. And that creates these, informal blacklists that can stick around long after the original problem is fixed. A bad reputation can precede you for years.
Okay, this is all genuinely quite alarming. Given these really severe consequences, what can organizations actually do to prevent this kind of, catastrophe? It really seems like being proactive is absolutely crucial.
Prevention has to be priority number one for every single charity. It's not optional. And it needs systematic approaches, not just, hoping for the best or relying on one person remembering. First off, robust calendar management systems are essential. Simple, but essential. Track those filing dates months and months in advance. Set up multiple reminder alerts, maybe starting 6 months before the deadline, then increasing the frequency as the date gets closer.
Like really build it into the workflow.
Exactly. Second, maintain financial records regularly throughout the entire year. This avoids that frantic, last-minute scrambling when the deadline looms. Organizations should really establish, say, monthly financial reporting procedures that automatically collect and organize the information they'll need for the T3010. Make it routine, not a mad dash.
And how critical is getting professional help in all this? Is that just a luxury for bigger charities, or is it more of a necessity for everyone?
I would argue it's an absolute necessity, or at least a very wise investment for almost everyone. Investing in professional support, whether that means training your own staff properly or hiring external service providers like accountants or lawyers who specialize in charity law, that's a crucial investment in compliance security. Honestly, the cost of getting professional help with the filing, it's truly minimal when you compare it to the potential consequences of getting it wrong. It's often the best insurance policy a charity can buy.
That makes sense. Insurance against catastrophe, as you put it.
Right. And finally, board oversight is key. The board needs to be involved. Having regular board reports specifically on the T3010 filing status and general compliance requirements helps keep everyone focused. It maintains institutional attention on these critical obligations, and it reduces the risk of everything depending on just one single person remembering to do it. It's just too important to be a one-person job.
This has really been quite a deep dive into the hidden dangers of what seems like just a simple piece of administrative paperwork. It truly underlines that the dangers of failing to file that T3010 return on time, they are genuinely existential threats to charitable organizations. From those immediate penalties right through to complete dissolution, the consequences just far, far exceed the relatively simple task of the annual filing itself.
And this really begs an important question, I think, for all charities and actually for anyone who supports them or cares about them. T3010 compliance simply must be treated as a mission-critical activity. It deserves the same level of attention, the same resources as program delivery or fundraising. It truly is, as we said, insurance against organizational catastrophe. And that's insurance that really no charity can afford to be without. In the world of charitable governance, there are very few second chances when it comes to regulatory compliance like this.
So maybe something to reflect on is how this deep dive into Canadian charity compliance really highlights the hidden power of these administrative details. And maybe consider how you, perhaps as a supporter or just a community member, might use this knowledge now to better understand and maybe even better support the organizations doing such vital work all around you.